Hey guys, I'm Katie. Welcome to Mend and Nourish. Thank you so much for joining me today. And today is the day we are finally planting in our garden for the 2023 growing season. And I couldn't be happier, and I'm so glad that you're here with me to follow along. We're gonna be planting around 80 potato plants. We have around 200 sets of onions. I have some rhubarbs and some horseradish roots to plant today. But before we do that, we're headed to the greenhouse to start hardening off our cold hardy varieties. And we need to get a move on that because the rain is coming. But hey, rain or shine, we are getting this garden planted today. Let's go. I like to harden off my plants. This is the back side of our greenhouse, the north side, so it never gets any sun back here, which is where you want to start when you're hardening off your plants. Hardening off is when you gradually start exposing your plants to the outdoor elements, slowly acclimating them to the wind, rain, and the sun. Start the process about 7 to 10 days before you plan on planting your plants in the garden. Start with a few hours a day and gradually increase their time outside a couple hours each day. After a few days, slowly start exposing your plants to sunlight, gradually increasing sun exposure each day. Eventually, your plants will be outside all day long and acclimated to the full sun. Our potatoes first. I wanted to go over the varieties with you before we start planting. I have purchased a couple bags here, each of the, let's see, we have 2 bags of the red Norland and 2 bags of the Yukon Golds. I think I got these either from Walmart or Home Depot. And then these white bins here, these are from last year's garden. The majority of these are either russets or Yukon Golds. I did purposely save these to go to seed so we'd have them for this year's garden. And I did purchase a couple bagged potatoes a few months back, and I've been keeping them in a cool, dark area so that they will grow eyes, and they have done just that. And these are just some that I had in my pantry. I don't know if we'll need them, but they have also grown eyes. I had kind of forgotten about them, and these are gold potatoes and a few red potatoes. So let's get planted. So here is one of the potato beds in the front row. This one is 4 foot wide by 20 feet long. And there is also another one in the back row that's also 4 foot wide by 20 feet long. These will be dedicated to our potatoes. A couple weeks back, we did amend our beds with compost, an organic compost. I put about 1 inch or so on in this bed. Potatoes are really heavy feeders, so you want to make sure you have really good nutritious soil. So we will also be sprinkling in an organic fertilizer while we're planting the potatoes. So we're gonna start with the russet potatoes first, and I'm planning on doing 3 rows down this 20-foot bed. In the middle row, I'm gonna try to stagger the potatoes so that they're not all in a line going this way. That'll give the potatoes a little bit more growing room. And I'm just gonna lay them all out first and kind of get a good idea where I want them, and then I will dig them in. Okay, now we're gonna move on to the gold or the Yukon Gold potatoes. This one potato is growing through the bag, and it's a really good eye, so I wanna try to not damage it. I might just leave that on there because that's a pretty good eye, and I think trying to get this off will just destroy it. So we'll leave it and see what happens. This back row here is also 4 foot wide by 20 feet long, and I'm gonna start with the ones that we purchased from the store. We're gonna put the Yukon Golds here in the front, and then I will put the 2 packages of the red, these are the red Norlands here in the back or wherever they meet up. And then we'll fill in with whatever we have left. Now, say if you didn't have enough of the seed potatoes and you needed to start cutting these, you can cut them as long as you have at least 1 to 2 eyes on each portion of the cut potato, and you'd want to let it heal for at least a couple days so that that fresh cut portion has a chance to seal up and harden over. Otherwise, if you plant it freshly cut, you do run the risk of it rotting, and you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you get the best possible harvest with your potatoes. I like to wait to plant my potatoes until I'm about 1 to 2 weeks out from my last predicted frost date. You want to ensure that once your potato starts to grow and sprout, that the new sprouted growth isn't going to be harmed or damaged by any frost. This can stunt or even kill the plant. We're about 1 week out from our predicted last frost date. We're now ready to start planting the potatoes. I have them all spaced out accordingly. I counted them all and we have 118 plants. We did about 80 last year, so that's a lot more than last year. I must have spaced them a little bit closer this year, and not a big deal. We might get a little bit smaller potatoes, but we like the smaller potatoes anyway. Now we'll go ahead and plant these. I like to plant them around 4 to 6 inches deep in the soil. And then as the plant grows, the green part starts exposing. I will cover that once it gets to be about 6 inches. I'll cover it with a nice thick layer of mulch. I'll usually use straw, or in this case I have some alfalfa left over. So I'll cover them really well. And then when you go to harvest them, the potatoes will be really close to the surface, so you won't have to go digging a whole lot. It'll be less labor intensive. And then the straw will also help keep the potatoes so they don't get exposed to the sunlight, which will make them turn green, which is actually toxic, and you don't want to be eating green potatoes. So let's get planting on these because we have a lot to do and the rain is definitely coming. The eyes will go up. I'm also going to be putting a little bit of this Kellogg's organic fertilizer. I'll put probably 1/4 cup or so in each hole. With the eye up, and then we'll bury it. 1 potato down, 117 to go. Some of the potatoes that we are planting have really long eyes, so I'm making sure that those are completely covered with the soil and the straw mixture. I don't want these exposed quite yet to the elements since we are not yet in the clear of our last predicted frost date. I need 1 more week and then we should be good to go. We've been having some below average cooler weather for the month of April here in the Pacific Northwest. Our averages are way colder than it has ever been in the last 12 years, and it is finally looking like we'll be warming up next week. So until then, I'm going to keep everything safe from any surprise frost. Typically, potatoes take on average 100 days to reach full maturity, so we should be expecting quite the harvest come the end of July to early August. I purchased some onion sets from the store. I have a red and a yellow set, nothing fancy, just some plain old onions. I wanted to make sure we get some onions this year, just in case our onion seed experiments don't work. And I haven't hardened them off yet, so we have another week or so before I can even plant those out in the garden. But for now, we're gonna plant these sets, and I'm gonna plant them here in this bed and probably the next bed over on the other side of the tomatoes. That side will have the tomatoes, and then this side will be the onions. So let's get these in the ground. So what I'm doing is just gently putting them into the soil, probably like 1 inch deep or so, and then I'll go back around and I'll cover them with the soil. We're still not out of the clear yet for frost, so once I cover them with soil, I will put some mulch on top of them just to protect them. I put a nice thick layer of this alfalfa that I found at Tractor Supply. It's the same stuff we did for the garlic, and it worked really well. So hopefully these little onions will sprout here pretty soon, so we'll have a good harvest this year. Next up, we're gonna plant our horseradish. This is the Melon Kren horseradish. I purchased this off of the Burpee website. I have 5 crowns. They've been soaking in warm water for the past 2 hours, so they're ready to go out into the soil. And I will be using the Organic Plus fertilizer by Kellogg's. just to kind of help give them a little nutritional boost. And it is raining, so you, my friend, will stay nice and dry, but I will go out there and brave the rain. I don't mind. I will be planting these horseradish here in the bed next to the greenhouse. It was a miscellaneous herbs bed last year, so there is a perennial thyme and parsley plant in the spot that I want to plant these. I will be moving those though once we are past the danger of frost, but for now these are going to go in there, so let's get out there and start planting. When planting horseradish, you want to plant the roots with the crown facing up. This is the part that is going to grow the leaves. Dig a hole around 6 inches deep and plant at a 45-degree angle. This will encourage the roots to grow outwards. And hopefully we will be able to harvest this delicious root after our first frost this fall. For today, you guys, I'm so glad that we beat the rain on this one. We only got hit with it just a little bit there at the end, but not a big deal. And can you believe we got 118 potatoes into the ground? That's gonna be one massive harvest come the end of July or maybe August. And that's gonna do it for today's video, you guys. If you liked it, please hit that thumbs up or even subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you. Bye.